here in a dream. I'm just stuck here in a dream.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Guns and Yoga podcast. My name is Wendy Hummel. This week, I speak to Rob Sanderson. He's an 18-year law enforcement veteran and founder of the nonprofit organization SWEL, which stands for Surf, Waves, Enjoy Life. Rob founded the organization early last year in the midst of the pandemic, along with a group of like-minded veterans and first responders, in order to fill a void in those communities. That void is options for positive outlets to aid in the processing of cumulative and acute traumas for our nation's heroes to overcome during their career. Rob is offering a unique opportunity for first responders in the Midwest. Rob's collaboration with other nonprofit organizations, such as War Horses for Veterans and the Police Athletic League of Kansas City, demonstrate his heart-centered desire to serve. Rob discusses his own adversity in facing early retirement due to an unforeseen injury and how surfing helped him cope. This realization inspired him to start SWEL and share the evidence-based benefits of ocean therapy with other first responders. One of the reasons I created this podcast was to share incredible resources like this one that support the mental health, resilience, healing, and overall well-being of first responders. I'm proud to be affiliated with this organization. When this podcast airs, I should be at the tail end of my first surf mission, where I get to share the tools of yoga, mindfulness, and meditation with my fellow first responders. One of my favorite quotes has always been, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf," by Jon Kabat-Zinn. Who knew it would transform from metaphor to reality for me? Enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of the Guns and Yoga podcast. Today's guest is Rob Sanderson. Rob is a retired police sergeant from the Lenexa Kansas Police Department. He started his career in law enforcement in 2003 with the Harrison County Sheriff's Office in Gulfport, Mississippi. Rob founded the nonprofit organization SWEL, which stands for Surf, Waves, Enjoy Life, back in 2020 with a group of like-minded veterans and first responders in order to fill a void in those communities. That void is options for positive outlets to aid in the processing of cumulative and acute traumas of our nation's heroes to overcome in their career. Decompress, disconnect, and reinvigorate. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad you can make it. Let's just start from the beginning. One reason that I created this podcast was to provide a platform for first responders like yourself to share your story, since we all have one. I'm a firm believer that sharing stories can create resilience in yourself and others, but it also can give you a way to use your own journey as a means to help others. So why don't you just let us know, if you don't mind, kind of starting from the beginning, what led you to a career in law enforcement to serve?
Yeah, so the original plan was actually to go into the military, and I got hurt when I was in my junior year in college. I was going through Marine Corps Officer Candidate School. And then 9/11 rolled by, and I was in my senior year, and I remember my dad calling me right after 9/11, and he says, "What are you going to do about this?" And it was so puzzling because, I'm a college student, just turned 21 years old. And I was like, well, what do you mean? What am I going to do about this? I don't know anything about terrorism. And so I really, that stuck with me. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to be a police officer. And that's really kind of what kicked that off for me was that echo of what are you going to do about this? And that's how I chose to serve. So right after college, I joined a program called Police Corps, and Police Corps was a federally funded police academy. It's like 6.5 months long, and they paid you while you were there, and they also provided tuition reimbursement for your college education or scholarship. So it was a pretty good deal, and the idea was to get college graduates into local law enforcement. I ended up in Mississippi because they canceled the funding at the Texas Police Corps, and Mississippi was the next academy, and I needed a job. So I was like, I'll go to Mississippi. Sure. I'd never even been there before other than to maybe drive through on my way to Florida. So that's really what kind of started my career in law enforcement.
Okay, so you're originally from Texas then, is that right?
Well, that's a little bit different story. So I was a Navy brat. So I've lived in, all right, I'm going to rattle this off for you: Florida, Hawaii, California, Virginia, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, and now Kansas.
Wow, I thought I was bad. I've lived in probably 7 or 8 states, so we're pretty close.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, as a kid, I didn't really like that, but those skills of moving so often really, play well into the careers that we've chosen for sure.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up in Kansas. You started your career in Mississippi, and what led you from Mississippi to join the Lenexa Police Department?
A little storm called Hurricane Katrina came through and decimated our region. I was on the Gulf Coast there, obviously Gulfport. And, New Orleans got a lot of the coverage, but really Gulfport got hit pretty hard in that whole region. So in the aftermath of Katrina, we worked 48 days straight of 16-hour shifts. And then for 6 months, we worked 5 days a week, 12-hour shifts. And so they sent cops from all over the nation to come and help us out. And Lenexa, or actually Kansas, sent a giant contingent of officers. And I started partnering up with the Lenexa guys and getting to know them pretty well. And it seemed like each stick of guys they would send down, they were equally as like-minded and entertaining. So about 9 months after the hurricane, they asked me if I wanted a job, and I said, yeah, get me out of here. So that's how I moved to the middle of the country.
Okay, interesting. So you had some folks from Kansas that came to help, and they kind of recruited you, stole you away, right?
Yeah, I was a stowaway in the back of their patrol car, essentially.
Gotcha. So any regrets moving to Kansas, moving to the Midwest?
I mean, it's hard to say. The only regret is that I'm further from the coast, but, I worked for a great agency, met a lot of great people. I met my wife, got married, and she's tolerated me now. It's been 10 years. So, we got a daughter, and you wouldn't trade any of those experiences for the world, not even to live on the beach.
Yeah. And congratulations on being married for 10 years.
Thanks. All the congratulations go to my wife, really.
Yeah, I believe that. So did you start to surf when you lived in Mississippi, or had you been doing that growing up?
So I did a little bit growing up, but really I cut my teeth when I moved to Corpus Christi, Texas in college, and met my buddy Reggie, who helped me found SWEL. And really he's the one that brought me into the surf community. And that's where I really fell in love with it, was in college.
So how did you find the time to continue to surf while you were living in Kansas?
Through the grace of my wife, she'd allow me, 3 or 4 times a year, maybe 5 times a year to make these trips. She knew that they were important to me. And it was just kind of my opportunity to escape and get away. So Reggie, who I'm still friends with, is out on the West Coast. We would just kind of follow him around wherever, if he was in San Diego at the time or LA, we would fly out there and he'd have some boards and some wetsuits, and we spent a couple days. So.
Well, that's great. First of all, when you say your wife let you, that's really important, because one of the things that we talk about on this particular podcast is how important relationships are, and working that out with your significant other and letting them know what you need. And that's really good, because that's a healthy way to be, because obviously that's helped you get through your career, is going on those trips.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a progression. I'm not, as most cops aren't, the best communicator when it comes to what I need. Mm-hmm. So I think she just recognized that and provided me a little bit of grace.
And that's good. And obviously it goes both ways. So hopefully I'm hoping that you reciprocate and let her go do her thing, whatever that is.
Yeah, 100%.
So throughout your career, you were with Lenexa, and correct me if I'm wrong, 18, 19 years before your retirement?
So I was there a little over almost 15. So I had total service of about 18 years.
Okay. And you recently retired, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your career and what led you to your retirement?
Yeah, so coming up here, obviously start over in patrol. So I worked patrol. I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to be one of the first bicycle officers for the city. And that was a lot of fun, because you kind of got to forge your own way, and made a lot of drug arrests doing that. So was appointed a position with the drug enforcement unit, and had an opportunity to work undercover for 4 years, which was a lot of fun. Worked a few cases with DEA and FBI, and Nothing too crazy, but it was high level for me, especially being in small town Lenexa. So had a lot of fun doing that, promoted to corporal, and then moved back to patrol to seek the sergeant position. In between there, I worked at the academy for like 4 months, worked through one class before I got promoted to sergeant. And from there, I ran a shift for about 4 years. During 2018, we switched to an overvest system, and for whatever reason, that just didn't agree with my thoracic spine. After a few foot pursuits and fights and lifting heavy things, I developed an injury. Originally, I thought it was just a muscular issue, and it didn't quite go away, so I took a position with staff services to where I'd be out of uniform and be at a desk, hoping that maybe I could just kind of heal it up. And injury persisted, went and got an MRI, found out I had an annular tear and a disc herniation, and I've got like 4 or 5 discs that are fairly bad, degenerative discs, which was causing my pain. So several rounds of rehab and speaking with doctors and surgeons, and the decision was finally made that I had to, once they put us on standby to where, with the civil unrest, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get out there and stand on the line and deal with some of the things that were going on in Kansas City at the time. So I went on light duty, and then eventually the decision was made that I had to seek a medical retirement.
And what was that like? Because obviously you weren't expecting to probably stop your career when you did, or retire when you did.
Yeah, so that was rough because, I planned on doing at least another 10 years. And my solution, quite honestly, was to grab my surfboard, and I drove 14 and a half hours to the coast and went surfing for 3 days. I showed up at my buddy's doorstep. He knew something was wrong, but he just opened his door and allowed me to crash there, do what I needed to do. And I came home and just tried to deal with it the best I could. I'm not going to say that I've dealt with it well, because, you go through the whole dichotomy of anger and then self-loathing, and, you just got to find ways to continue to serve. And I think really SWEL has helped me through this whole process, and I'm still kind of finding my way through it to this point.
And I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that I like to talk about, because I had a similar retirement story where I wasn't injured, but I retired before I had planned. And I think a lot of times in law enforcement in particular, we have a mindset of staying X amount of years and that's it, really having no backup plan. And so I think it's really good that you have figured out a way to still continue to serve. Because I think with our group of people, especially, we do this work. People can say what they want, but we want to feel useful in some way. We want to feel like we're contributing. So I think it's wonderful that you've turned that into what you now have with SWEL. So why don't we talk about SWEL and how you came up with the idea?
Sure. Living in Kansas City, the only thing worse than not being able to go surfing is being able to go surfing but not having anybody to go with. So, I started bringing guys with me and teaching them how to surf. And maybe 2017-ish, 18, I brought a buddy of mine. He's, the quintessential SWAT guy, right? Just big, chiseled dude, and full of, hypervigilance and everything that you would picture. If you had to draw a picture of the SWAT commander, it's this dude. And he's a good guy. Brought him out there and pushed him into a few waves, and just kind of saw that just slowly melt away. And when you physically can see somebody change that manner, it was kind of my aha moment. Like, oh, wow, like this is what I've been getting out of this whole time and didn't realize it. So that really got the wheels turning for me. And then when I came home from that trip, another friend of mine was involved in a shooting, and he had to go on administrative leave like we do, and comes back a month later and he'd put on like 20 pounds. He looked like crap, and you could tell just the stress is really getting to him. So I turned to another guy that I had taught to surf and said, hey, it'd be great if we could maybe raise some funds to start taking these guys out surfing. And I had recently had some exposure to places like Warhorse for Veterans and Kansas City, Kansas Police Athletic League. So I'd had some nonprofit exposure to where, maybe that played into it as well.
And you may have said this, I apologize, but when was that? How long ago was that realization for you?
Like 2017, 18, somewhere in there. It was just prior to my injury.
Okay. And so in 2020, you officially launch SWEL as a nonprofit.
Yeah, what a time to start a nonprofit right in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, I think we submitted our paperwork in January 2020, got approved sometime in March. And the original plan, honestly, was just to get enough gas money and cash together to drive guys to the Gulf Coast to take them surfing. And the funny thing is we haven't been to the Gulf Coast yet. We've been flying guys out to California. We've just been that fortunate.
Okay, so tell me a little bit, and for those who are listening who their interest maybe is piqued, like, hey, how can I get to go on these trips? Or even more importantly, maybe like a decision maker in an agency or an agency leader, speak to what the benefits are and why you should, maybe give someone some time off to attend one of these retreats, or what you might get out of it besides what you've already addressed. And if you don't mind, it's kind of a two-part question. Tell us what the retreat looks like. I mean, it's a 4-day getaway, for lack of a better word. And how did you pick the location?
Yeah, so to answer the first part of the question, whether it's surfing or fishing or jogging or cycling or whatever, there's a real lack of recognition that police officers and firefighters and veterans, that they need this source of positive outlets in their life, to where they're not going to surrender to it necessarily and say, hey, I need to go experience nature or whatever. So having these programs available and for lack of better terms, like forcing them to go, like rub their nose in it and be like, you need a break, is important. And specifically with surfing, what makes it unique is having a surfing program in the Midwest is you're removing these guys geographically from what's stressing them. Okay. So you take them out of that environment. And not only that, you put them in the middle of the ocean. And there's something about the ocean that'll provide a little bit of perspective. There's that anxiety of what's beneath me and how powerful it is. But also, you can't carry your gun out there. You don't have your radio. Your family's not on shore, yelling for you to come in because you've got to, tend to the kids. You're just there. And then to be solely focused on a new activity like surfing is a real exercise in mindfulness and just being able to try to conquer your fears, and then that elation of catching your first wave and that accomplishment, coupled with being able to go out to a beautiful area and then incur no debt from it is truly important. So that's kind of the why of the surfing. And really what I've tried to encapsulate in these trips is what I've always enjoyed about surf trips. And that is the sense of kind of brother, sisterhood, adventure. So we try to make it very organic. And we rent a beach house, and we've chosen Seal Beach because it's a cool little community just outside of LA. We've got a great support system there. BZ and Body Glove, they let us borrow their demo gear to take guys surfing with, the wetsuits and the boards. And then I've got a few veterans and first responders out there that help us push guys into waves. So it's just a good support system out there in Seal Beach, and that's just north of Huntington Beach, Surf City, USA. So really the trip's 4 days. We fly out there and put them in a really nice beach house, and it's 1 block from the beach. And then anything you want to go and do is within walking distance. Some really cool restaurants right up and down Main Street. You surf your butt off on Saturday, eat some good food. Now with the addition of people like yourself, we'll be doing a little bit of restorative yoga, a little bit of meditation. We do family style meals. So, we'll go to Costco and get a bunch of good wholesome foods and then cook it up in the evening. Wahoo's Fish Tacos on Sundays brings us a big old load of burritos so that we can fuel up there. They're a great group of people there. And then, we have a big event usually on Sunday where we invite all veterans, first responders, and their family to come out and join us at the beach, whether that be at Seal Beach or Bolsa Chica State Park, and they can come out and learn to surf as well and really have that, again, kind of brotherhood, sisterhood, kind of foundation fellowship out there. And then Monday morning, we wake up at 5 a.m. and try to hit it for one more evening glass and then get on a plane and come home.
Wow, that sounds awesome. And I really like what's appealing to me and what I think should hopefully appeal to others is the holistic platform that you're describing. So the focus is surfing and learning a new skill and taking you away from your environment. But I really like how you're incorporating community, peer support, having people, local first responders come, the whole idea of providing healthy food, because we think about that too. How often do we just go through a fast food place for food and eat like crap? So I really like all the things that you mentioned. And of course, yoga and meditation is kind of like, to me, what your surfing is to you. So I think that's just another added benefit, I guess, to coming on the retreat.
Yeah. That the fellowship aspect and the peer support aspects, it's really important. And if you get a group of like-minded people together and, you take them on an adventure and a stress-free environment, that stuff will kind of, again, organically kind of come out of them, and there'll be some discussion. And I'll give you an example of our last November trip. We'd taken 4 police officers, 2 of which were from Sacramento area in California, and one had been shot in the face while on duty. The other assisted to save his life, and that was 2017. So fast forward to 2020, those guys hadn't seen each other since the incident, and it was obviously a traumatic event for both of them. And we were able to reunite them there at the beach house, and they found a love of cooking when we were doing the family style. Well, they didn't find, they both found that they shared the love of cooking rather, together. And over the grill, I got to witness them reflect on the day that Alex was shot and Mike assisted in saving his life. And just kind of hearing their perspective was cathartic for both of them. And really cool to that is both of them are coming out in March with us, and you'll meet them, just to come cook. So they're coming down on their own dime just to come cook for the group.
That's awesome. So when you were telling that story, I just got chills. Like that's powerful. That's kind of what it's all about, right?
Yeah, and that's, what SWEL does is we try to identify, missions and purpose to take guys out on. It'd be great to just take, 100 people out to the coast and do it, but really, we don't necessarily have that reach just yet. So we try to find specific events and missions that, acts of heroism or great kindness or tragedy to really reinvigorate these guys.
So besides Rob Sanderson saying, hey, surfing is really beneficial for all the reasons that you named, you have on the website, and I've heard you talk about this before, that there's research to actually back this up. And I think you specifically talk about a book and a study done by Dr. Crawford. Can you just tell everybody a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So Dr. Crawford did a study, I believe it was a 3-year study on a similar type group that dealt with veterans coming back from war, some of which have been wounded pretty severely and suffering from PTSD. And what he found was improvements in self-efficacy. So like your ability to look at something and say, yes, I can complete this, or no, I can't, is kind of a gauge on your self-efficacy. But so the improvement of that, like learning a new task, like surfing, for example, is far more beneficial to people in our communities, whether that be veteran or first responder, than traditional therapy.
So if somebody's interested in finding out a little bit more about that, did you say that Dr. Crawford also wrote a book? Because we can include that in the show notes.
He did. I can't think of the title of it, but yeah, he wrote a book and published his finding and statistics.
Okay. We can figure that out and add that later on.
Awesome.
So tell us a little bit. You mentioned there's an upcoming trip in March. How many other trips are planned for the future, and how can someone out there who's listening help to support future trips? Yeah,
so we've got the end of the month, which I'm assuming this will probably launch while we're out on that trip. Is a firefighter trip, and it's a really cool story. But basically, a firefighter ran a call for service, and there was an infant baby and a toddler, and their mother passed away in very tragic means, and their father bore some responsibility for that. And the firefighter just felt this overwhelming calling to take care of these 2 children, and he fostered the children for 3 years, and then eventually adopted the 2 beautiful girls, and they're a big happy family. And his wife obviously has a huge part in that as well, so we're taking him and a buddy. In August, we have a trip planned with the Kansas Police Athletic League. We're going to take 6 of the PAL kids. And if you're not familiar with PAL, it's like an after-school boxing gym and program that they do archery and art, and most importantly, they give the kids positive things to focus on, help them with their schoolwork. But it's a program for at-risk youth, and so we're taking 6 of those awesome kids, and then about probably 6 cops as well from the area, and we're teaching them both to surf together in August as a active, like a bridge building, healing, like, hey, 6 inner city kids, 6 inner city cops. We're going to teach them a new skill together, and they're going to, share family style meals. And then maybe, there in the future, they'll see a little bit different of one another's community than they would normally. And then this winter, we're looking at potentially going out to Hawaii and doing a trip with a Special Operations Command in Oahu.
Wow, that's exciting. And so if somebody out there may not necessarily be a first responder or somebody who may go on one of these trips, how can you get support financially to fund the trips?
Sure. So we've got a couple of means. Go to the SWEL, SWEL.org, and you can click and donate. You can also purchase some really cool clothing, or click and buy some Bravo Zulu Brew coffee. Any of those things will help us out tremendously, and 100% of the proceeds from that goes into the programming.
Okay. And any ideas for any fundraisers coming up that you want to share? And if you don't, that's okay too.
I always have ideas, just a matter of what the pandemic's going to do to allow us. There's I host a neighborhood golf tournament through the yards of all my neighbors using foam golf balls and a ton of beer, and they tolerate that for me. We go down to War Horses and host little galas there with executive chefs. A few weeks ago, we had a bourbon mixologist and a really cool chef out there to prepare some meals. So we're still working on what this spring fundraiser might look like, and a lot of it has to do with whether or not we're going to do in person or not.
Okay. But if somebody wants to just donate outright, they can just go to the website, and there's a way to do that, correct?
Yep. There's a big donate button, theswel.org, and it'll automatically generate a tax receipt for you. We are a registered 501c3.
Excellent. And so just as we're wrapping up, a couple other questions. The people who are the, quote, surf coaches besides yourself, are those just people who, over the years you've gone surfing with that know how to surf and just decide to donate their time?
Yeah, they're just about all of them are either veterans or first responders. And so they're, again, like-minded people that are there to support your decompression. And they're buddies of mine and people that I've met along the way.
Okay, great. And so what do you say to somebody like me? Because we've talked about this before, who I love the beach. I love the ocean. I feel immediately peaceful when I go. I grew up going there, but I'm not really a big fan of going in the ocean, as you know, and I am going to try to overcome that fear in a few weeks, but talk to me or talk to the listeners about how to overcome that for the big picture, for the benefits of surfing.
I would say, first of all, what better way to go than to be food, right?
Oh, geez.
No.
That's not helpful, by the way.
Okay, so I'll put it in a first responder kind of perspective. If you can remember the first time that you made entry, whether it be an exigent circumstance or on a warrant or whatever, and you're in that stack and you just say, you know what, I'm going to give in to whatever this happens. I know I need to do this and just make it happen. If you can take that mindset and to go into the ocean, really that's helpful. If you just drop fear down to that, to your side and focus on the moment, that all those other things will take care of themselves. So, that's how I tend to deal with a lot of my anxiety and fears, and that would be my recommendation. You're significantly more likely to be injured in a car accident on the way to the beach than you are to actually get eaten by a big fish out there.
Okay. Well, and I think that was a really good way to put it for those that are listening, because that puts it in perspective for us. So I'll still work on that, and I will try to avoid watching YouTube videos of shark attacks before the trip.
Yeah, just don't look at your phone if somebody sends you some fishy looking text messages.
Okay, I'll try to do that. Well, I appreciate your time, Rob. I really commend you two for putting together this awesome resource and program for first responders, veterans, and other community members, like you mentioned, the PALS program. Really, it's very obvious that you're very passionate, not only just about surfing, but about helping and giving back to those that you've served alongside with and others. So thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for being a part of SWEL. And I think, just your commitment to make our heroes good is awesome. And the fact that you would come back to this profession to just solely focus on that is great. So thank you, Wendy.
Oh, you're very welcome. When somebody asks me to come teach yoga and meditation on the beach to cops and firefighters, it's kind of a no-brainer for me. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Well, thanks, Carl, for letting her do it.
Okay, yeah, he's good to go. He was invited, but he's got to watch the kids. Somebody's got to.
Maybe Hawaii.
Yes, maybe. That would be awesome. So as we wrap up, one more time, and we've mentioned it throughout, tell us if someone wants to find Rob Sanderson, wants to find SWEL, give us the ways we can do that. Yeah,
so you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the SWEL Mission. You can email us at info@theswel.org, and that's SWEL, only one L. Or go on our website at theswel.org.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Rob. Anything else you want anyone to know before we sign off?
No, I just, everybody tune in to check out Wendy surfing here. And, well, I guess right now, check out our Instagram feed because there's going to be pictures of Wendy surfing.
Oh, boy. Okay. Yeah, actually, the plan is for this to air, you're right, when we're there. So fingers crossed.
You'll do great.
All right. Well, thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the show. The links are in the show notes for the book that we discussed and where you can find SWEL, their website, and all the social media outlets.